Not all coordinate planes are the same. Let's take a look at this one. What do you notice that's different about this coordinate plane from the other coordinate planes that we've worked with? Hopefully you see that we have an extra space between all of our integers. Well, that's because not only can we put integers on coordinate planes, we can also use rational numbers. So we can use decimals and we can use fractions on a coordinate plane as well. So if you were to think about this coordinate plane, the mark that's between 0 and 1, of course, would represent 1/2. So we can label that with 1/2. The mark that comes between 1 and 2 would be 1 and 1/2. And then the mark that comes after the 2 would be 2 and 1/2. And we can do this on the negative side as well. So we can have a negative 1/2 between 0 and negative 1. A negative 1 and 1/2 between negative 1 and negative 2. And then a negative 2 1/2. And I can do the same thing on my y-axis that as I just did on my x-axis. Let's go ahead and let's label that. But this time, instead of using fractions, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use decimals, because sometimes you're going to see them labeled as decimals. So here would be 0.5, 5/10. And we would have 1.5 and 2.5. Let's do the same thing on the negative side of the y-axis. This would be negative 0.5, negative 1.5, negative 2.5. So now we've got some ordered pairs. And remember, it's always our x followed by our y. So we're always moving over to the side and then up or down, left and right. X is left and right, y is up and down. Okay? So for point D, right here, I'm going to start at the origin and I'm going to move over to my left because this is the line that lines up with the D. So now when I write that, I'm going to make sure that I include my negative sign. So I have negative 1/2. And then when I move up, I have a positive 0.5. Let's do the B, which is right here. So again, we're always going to go left or right first. So the B is in line with the negative 2. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to write my x coordinate as negative 2. And then it is in line with my negative 1.5. I'm going to do the same thing for A. I'm going to move over to the side first. It's a positive 1.5. If I look, the A is directly underneath that positive 1 and 1/2. And my Y, my A is in line with my negative 1. Ordered pairs can contain integers, but again, they can also include all types of rational numbers, including fractions and decimals. These types of ordered pairs are graphed in the same way. So first we're going to move left or right for the x coordinate, then up or down for the y coordinate. Sometimes though you have to estimate the location. So when I look at this coordinate plane, you'll see I don't have spaces numbered for 1/2. I have to just estimate where it would be in between those numbers, just like we do on a number line. So point A, I'm going to put at negative 2.55. So we start at the origin. Then I'm going to move over to where negative 2.5 is. I'm going to mark it on my coordinate plane, but you won't mark it on your notes. I'm going to move over. 1, 2. Negative 2.5 is going to be somewhere in between negative 2 and 3 towards the middle. Then I'm going to move up from that space up to the 5. Again, you're not going to draw these lines. I'm doing this though so that you can see what's happening as I am plotting this. Now I can take those little lines away. So this gives me point A at negative 2.5 and 5. So let's look at B. We need to go positive 4.5. So again, I'm going to start at the 0, and I'm going to move over to where that 4.5 would be, halfway in between the 4 and the 5. Then I need to move to negative 7.5. So I'm going to come all the way down to where that negative 7 is, and then a half is going to be in between. So that means that in this case, I'm actually going to have a point that is in between the space. So it's going to be in this white area as opposed to actually being on a line. And that's okay, because we are graphing rational numbers. We are graphing fractions. We are graphing decimals. So B is taken care of. Make sure I label it. And I have negative 3.5, negative 3.5. So I know this is going to be in quadrant 3 because it's negative, negative. So I'm going to move over to where the negative 3.5 is on my x-axis, and I'm going to move down to where it is on my y-axis. And again, you'll see that this spot is inside the box that is made on our coordinate plane. That's okay. Point D, 0.5. So I'm barely going to move over in between the 0 and the 1, and then up to 5.5. So in the box, not actually on a line. Always make sure that you label. I'm going to ask you to pause right here, and I want you to go ahead and label these points on your coordinate plane, and then come back and check your work. Make sure that you pause. Hopefully you noticed that this time we had some quarters, some 1/4, some 3/4 mixed in with our halves. That's okay. That's going to happen too. There's not any problem with that. Again, you're just kind of estimating. Where would it be? 1/4 would be less than a half. So you would be less than halfway into the box. And 3/4 would be more than a half. So you would be in between the halfway and the point of the next line starting. Check your work. If you have any questions, make sure you let me know.